Chapter 511. Kick her out. Dominic sipped his drink for a moment, formulating a solution to their situation. All right, where is Janice right now? I know that her man is in custody, he asked. She was escorted from the party by Princess Alexis. I believe that she was being put in confinement in her rooms, pending a decision. Prince Fahad explained. Dominic nodded. All right, that works for a moment. Even without considering their past, it is not acceptable that any Signia noble would have their people assault a visiting royal. So, I plan to eject them both from the event, with a petition to the Count of Biverlow-Meuse to try them for assaulting a royal and causing an international incident. Tryon cleared her throat. You understand what will happen if you do that, yes? Dominic shrugged. Do you remember what the Wavemaid's punishment was for a rapist? The old techno which gave an evil chuckle. 1,000 lashes with a poisoned whip. Yes, I remember. Though I don't recall the last time that anyone had to use it. When you look at it that way, this seems quite kind. In fact, they might survive it. The Biverlow-Meuse daughter might not end up in the marriage that she wanted, but there are other events, or her father can arrange something. However, after this incident, she is no longer welcome at this one. Tryon nodded. I can open a portal there if you would like. Oh, that is a wonderful idea. I was going to send her with the next convoy, if she didn't have a ride. But bringing her father here, or sending her straight home, would work as well. Poppy sighed dramatically. Send her back to him. He's just as bad as she is, and you'd end up having to listen to his theatrics about how his daughter is definitely the victim in any and every situation. That sounded like much more of a headache than just kicking her out and letting her be dramatic at home. Dave, can you please go collect Janice and her man for me? Have the other Dave bring whichever one you don't. The troll nodded and walked away, while Poppy gave Carl a confused look. You know, I've been meaning to ask you for some time. Which one is Dave? All the ones that are not Larry or Ingrid. That's not helpful. All the ones in battle armor are named Dave. All 45 of them. The cooks are Larry, and the only female mountain troll is Ingrid, their mother. Tryon smiled at his explanation. That sounds right for mountain trolls, left to their own devices. You see, the women like them big and dumb, but the problem is that they end up with big dumb sons. Creativity isn't their strong point. After a moment, Dave came in, carrying a small brunette like a princess, while another troll dragged a servant by his ankles. Is there a reason he's not walking? Didn't want to. Brought him anyhow. Dave replied with a shrug. The man looked pretty rough, and not just from being dragged up at least 2 flights of stairs by his ankles. He had most likely been questioned by the royal guard, Dominic decided, when he saw one standing in the hall. You may place the lady in the chair beside Advisor Tryon. Dominic began. One troll set the lady down, while the other rearranged the battered servant so that he was kneeling. Your Grace, thank goodness you've seen sense. I was afraid that I would miss an entire day of the event over this misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. It must be. I have no idea what the Axbridge princess has said, but I only wanted to warn her about the dangers of cavorting with commoners, and she attacked me. She's been a vicious bully since we were children. Your Grace, please. I know that my status could never match hers, but if I might make a request, don't hold it against her. She's just in her rebellious phase. Dominic nodded understandingly, while Dave rolled his eyes. The dramatic overacting wasn't even good enough to fool the trolls. How she had made it this far with that level of skill was a mystery. That is terrible to hear. However, things have gotten too far out of hand today, and as I'm sure you're aware, noble ladies are responsible for their servants while they are at the event. This one is yours, and he is facing trial for assaulting a royal. As such, we have no choice but to send you home with him. Either your father or the royal courts can deal with the issue at their leisure. Right on cue, the tears began to flow. Your Grace, please. Don't let her scheming ruin my only chance at a good marriage. Dominic smiled, formulating another plan. Well, the rules do say you are ejected from the event along with your servant. However, I suppose there is no need to send you all the way home with him. If you would like to stay in the city, I can arrange for you to move in with one of the groups of nobles bunking in the warehouses. They're mixed with their servants, so I can't guarantee where you'll find a bed, but you'll still be able to attend the events within the city, just not within the manor. Poppy didn't look convinced that this was a good idea, but Dominic hadn't mentioned yet that all the nobles in the warehouses were men. The ladies were either in the manor or in one of the apartment blocks. That would likely change soon, with more guests coming, but that was how it was for now, and she didn't have a proper setup of her own. Your Grace? Aren't those all taken by sons of the untitled nobles? Not at all. There are many men from the north whose families have higher titles. They're just younger sons and didn't have an arrangement. It might seem improper, but there are separate shower areas for the ladies. Princess Poppy turned away to hide her amusement. With Janice's history of failed scheming, she was almost guaranteed to end up in a scandal that would see her married before the end of the week. The royal guard cleared his throat. Many of the men of the Natural Sons Regiment are staying with the locals for now, to avoid overcrowding in their barracks. If you're searching in the city, there are many titled men to be found. In that case, please help me, Your Grace. Wait here. Advisor Tryon is going to open a portal to send your man home, and your father may wish to have a word or two with you before it closes. Advisor, you may open the portal in the back corner. Thank you for your assistance. Chapter 512. Call Her Dad. The portal opened quickly, and the Count of Biverlow Mews stumbled through it into Dominic's office, as he had been walking when the portal appeared in front of him. My apologies, Count Mews. I am Dominic Wavemates, Duke of Westover. There has been a small incident with your daughter and one of the servants assigned to her. So, we were sending your man back home, along with a letter of explanation. The Count quickly straightened. Your Grace, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for hosting such a grand event. Finding a suitable match for younger daughters has become increasingly difficult in recent years. It's my pleasure. The event has become quite a spectacle, and I am told that we have even more arrivals coming, thanks to the extreme weather near the Dagos borders. I trust that the weather in Biverlow Mews has been tolerable. It was a coastal county in the south. It should be fairly warm and dry this time of year. More than tolerable. Unseasonably warm. Not that we would dare complain. Dominic handed over the report that the royal guard had brought them, and the Count quickly glanced through it with a horrified look on his face. This was not going to be good for him. Not at all. Most things he could smooth over. But the truth didn't really matter when she had offended visiting royalty. In his own territory or the capital, it was one thing, he had allies. But he'd never met the Duke of Westover before. Trying to convince Dominic to let his daughter go without severe punishment after getting caught scheming so openly would be nearly impossible. Worse, as he read the report, he realized that she had actually been caught in the middle of her scheme by Princess Alexis. The Paladin Princess was good friends with Princess Poppy. Of course, I will take this commoner back to face trial. Might I ask what repercussions the county might be facing for his actions while representing us? Miss Janice will be excluded from events within the manor, though if she wishes, she may still attend events within the city. Her residence here will also be relocated, as soon as we find a group with an extra bed. Janice's tears looked real now, as did her fear. Count Mews glared at her for a moment, then his expression softened. If I could ask a small favor? Please arrange for her wedding here in Westover. I will be in the capital for work, and it will be some time before I am able to attend in person. I do believe that her dowry was sent with her to the event. Well, that was a polite way of saying, don't send her home if she's not married by the end of the event. Of course. The gents of the Natural Sons Regiment will require many weddings this year, so we will be doing them constantly. If you do happen to find some leisure time, I can attempt to schedule Miss Janice's nuptials at the same time as those of Princess Min of Amerdon. She has finalized an arrangement with one of our barons, and we will be having a minor royal wedding for them in a fortnight. The Count nodded and took a wrapped box out of his storage ring. If I am unable to attend in person, please give this to the Amerdon Princess on my behalf. Of course. My apologies for interrupting your busy day. The Count nodded and grabbed the servant to drag him back through the portal, which Tryon closed behind them. The royal guard thumped his chest proudly. Wonderful. All tidied up. Now I know just the right spot for Lady Janice. If the young lady would like to accompany me, I will help her get her belongings moved and settled into a new dormitory. Dominic tilted his head, and Dave nodded. He would follow them and report back with where Janice ended up so that Dominic and the others would know right away. Where do you think that he's taking her? He seemed to have somewhere in particular in mind. He's not taking her to his room, is he? Princess Poppy asked. Dominic shook his head. No. They headed the wrong way to be headed to the Royal Guard's dorm. Perhaps there is someone interested in her, who she had been snubbing? Try and cast a spell that caused the teapot to float to her and refill her cup. She seems like the sort that turns down many men, hoping she can get a higher noble than her father. Perhaps this will be good for her. I have long maintained that the largest of misbehavior among young nobles is a lack of sex. Prince Fahad chuckled. Really now? The old woman winked at him. When you first got married, what did you do the next day? Laid around my room. We ordered food in, as we didn't want to leave, even to attend the royal dinner. When I think about it, you might be right. However, I will refrain from putting it in such a blunt way. The old woman smiled. It's an advantage of my advanced age. I can say whatever I want, and nobody can stop me. Dominic strongly suspected that nobody could stop her to start with. Techno-witches were all insane in one way or another. Trying to make them normal was a lost cause, so everyone just let them do what they wanted as long as the tasks assigned to them got finished. Now, Tryon was staring into her tea, and Dominic realized that she had cast some sort of scrying spell to follow the young lady and the royal guard out of the manor. He couldn't see the whole scene, the cup wasn't full enough. But they were headed for the Adventurers Guild region of town. Perhaps he was setting her up with one of the nobles who had bunked with the local commoners? None of the adventurers were nobles. Or he could be leading her to one of the officers from the Axbridge or Mitfield forces. The room was silent, with everyone watching the witch's teacup, until the royal guard led her into a small house, where a young mage in thick glasses was sitting with one of the carpenters. She didn't look happy about the situation, and there was no sound to their side of the spell, but after a few minutes, the guard left and she remained inside. All is well that ends well. Just watch for her attempts to get vengeance while you're out in town, princess. Chapter 513. Some are too soft. When the guard returned to make his report, he found everyone waiting for gossip and apparently already aware of where he had put Miss Janice. The young mage is from Biverlow Academy, a childhood friend of hers. Normally, she wouldn't have given him the time of day, but he's too nice to refuse her accommodations. The carpenter doesn't mind. I paid him for the extra roommate, and he got a 3-room house preparing for when he has family, but his wife isn't yet with child. Dominic smiled. So, there is a good chance that you were matchmaking? When you look at it from a distance, possibly. But more likely that boy will end up as the sit in the corner and watch Guy in whatever relationship he finds. Tryon nearly spit up her tea as she began to laugh. I don't think it's that bad. But he might need a more docile sort of wife than that schemer. Perhaps we should have someone introduce him to one of the ladies' Dagos. Not one of yours? No, they would chew him up and spit him out. The ladies of Shersdonia aren't known for being mild or indecisive. Though. Dominic laughed as Poppy's face went bright red. So this is what royal advisors talk about when they don't care who is listening? She asked. This is strictly work-related. We're at a marriage event, and it's part of our duty as hosts and chaperones to help the younger generation find their perfect partner. If you would like to take a break from helping Princess Alexis host, we could start looking for someone to match you with as well. Dominic suggested. Poppy winked at him. Father would never approve of it. I am his precious princess, reserved for moments of political necessity. Certainly not a minor princess who can have a love match. Dominic shrugged. There are political matches to be made here as well. Though, given your position, he will likely want you to go for one of the royals. Ooh, we should invite the youngest prince here. Is he old enough? Prince Fahad laughed at Dominic's innocent question. He's 19, younger than Poppy. He also got married just shy of 2 years ago. The king really doesn't hesitate to get his children married off, does he? It's sucking all the fun out of teasing the princess. Tryon watched Dominic and the royals banter, then turned her attention out the window. There were many more matches to be made, and her ladies should be outside soon. They had guardians to watch them, but she had ideas about who would be best for them that she needed to confirm. Namely, the members of the Duskblade sect that weren't present in the manor. Some of them had noble bloodlines, but they had chosen to attend the commoner side of the events, if they were attending at all. You look like you have a great need to meddle, advisor. Prince Fahad noted. Indeed. There are mages who should be in the dating pool, but they have chosen not to attend. Tryon agreed. Of the Duskblade sect? They gave up their claims to nobility years ago. She shrugged. The blood remains, and they have strong magic. A generation of strongly magical children is never the wrong answer. Far better than diluting it down with someone who can hardly operate a Magitech lamp. Dominic drummed his fingers on the desk. Well, I suppose it wouldn't hurt to give the ladies of Shersdonia a tour of the academy. They could visit with the sect members while they were there. Titles might not be part of the deal, but if the royal court doesn't object or wishes to pass them titles, I believe that Signia's rules would allow her family to inherit the title from her. Dominic mentally reviewed the rules that the tutors had drilled into his brain. Yes, that was right. Foreign titles granted to one partner were granted upon their spouse, regardless of gender. The rule is old, as women could actually inherit insignia now, but that hadn't always been the case, so a royal decree was passed to clarify. Likely because of a situation just like this one. Tryon smiled. That will be a great start for them. I'm sure that many of them are looking for status, and with their magic, they'll be great choices of wives for the barons in particular. A lot of things around the barony improve when you've got a powerful magic user living in the manor. Even more when she has motivation to make things better beyond just income. It's mostly my personal preference that they keep the magical bloodlines powerful. A knock at the door alerted Dominic that they had probably been in here long enough that there was trouble outside again. Come in. Your Grace, we've got multiple airships on the ground and how do I put this delicately? I have no fucking clue what we're going to do with 500 noble-blooded ladies under the age of 20 with no guardians. Dominic smiled, while Tryon snickered and Poppy covered her mouth with her sleeve, pretending to sip her tea, while tears of mirth rolled down her cheeks. How many men arrived with the airships? Dominic asked. That's just it. There are no men. None. Not even the airship crew. I thought that we would get some from North Signia, but they sent all their unmarriageable daughters and kept the sons at home. Dominic sighed. Who are they supposed to marry if nobody is sending us sons? Oh, it gets better. The North didn't just send us dignified, noble daughters. They sent war widows, noble-blooded servants, and what I am pretty sure is the entire population of Rita Wentel's top brothel pretending to be Signia noblewomen. Dominic popped the top off the rum and took a long swig. All right, say that again slowly. I think I might have heard it wrong the first time. Chapter 514. Increasing Imbalance. My lord, you really should come to the landing area. I don't know if this can be properly explained without seeing it for yourself. Every small village near the Dago's border sent us every eligible woman, including some who are clearly widows with children, who they brought with them, by the way. I don't know where we're putting them, how we're meant to deal with this, or where we're supposed to find enough men for them to compete over. The city guard complained. How is our ratio right now? More than 2 noble daughters to every nobleman. 3 noble-blooded servants and common women to every common man. Probably worse now with the new arrivals, as I'm not the greatest at math. Are you counting all the boys from Biverlow Academy and the Capital Academy? They are all sons of nobles, and a lot of them arrived just the last few days. Yes, my lord. I counted them. I even counted the men of the Duskblade sect to bring their numbers up. Should we send out a request for more men? He asked. Dominic sighed, and Prince Fahad patted the man on the shoulder. Where are you from, guardsman? He asked. Just outside Koster, Highness. Here in Stantia province. Then you might not have realized. There are no sons to send. Signia lost 100,000 young men during the war with Dagos. Mostly during the first invasion and the early monster attacks. Most of the young noblemen got married as soon as things were stable because every noble family lost at least 1 or 2 sons. There are some who adopted a cousin into the main family after they lost all the direct heirs with an aging noble. The situation is worse than most are willing to admit, and that's why the ladies are so desperate to find a husband that they're willing to fly thousands of kilometers to come to a dating event. Trya nodded. It's worse in Heir, as they've got the curse of daughters. West Kyria isn't much better, but that's mostly their own doing. A few decades back, there was a big push to build alliances, and the nobles started using potions to have daughters. An investment to build alliances. Only everyone did it, and now they've got far more girls than sons, and the war has depleted their options. The only alliances they can make are to the northeastern nations, which have much smaller industrial bases. From the door, the royal guard cleared his throat. Don't forget that Stancha province is mostly unoccupied, and Westover Duchy alone is large enough for every one of those ladies to settle on a new farmstead with her husband if she finds one. Without any inheritance coming to them, it's their only option at being more than a secondary branch member living in the back of someone else's estate. Dominic nodded. Thanks for the reminder. All right, I will go see the situation and get the majority of them settled into the warehouses and new builds. The daughters of titled nobles can come into the new housing that is going up today in the manor grounds. I will discuss with the Duchess what we're going to do to balance the numbers, so we don't have too many disappointed guests. Prince Fahad poured himself another drink. If you don't mind, we will borrow your office for a little while. We have a few things to discuss with the advisor from Shersdonia. Of course. Don't forget to activate the soundproofing if you're doing business. Dominic left the manor and briefly wondered if he should make himself something to improve travel time. The town was getting bigger, but taking a carriage or a truck was too cumbersome. Perhaps a motorized bicycle? That would save him a lot of time, and he wouldn't have to stick to the established roads when he was going to visit the farmers and hunters. It could fit between the trees, so it could get to almost all the houses in the area. He would have to work on something once things calmed down a little bit. At the airship docks, hundreds of young women were milling about, waiting for instructions on where to go. The city guards had a plan, but they were waiting for confirmation before they started moving anyone. Your Grace, thank you for coming in person. Ladies, this is Duke Dominic Wavemates. He is the host for this event, and he will have all the official details. No need to take our word for anything. The guard in charge of the area announced, and Dominic saw that he was very close to frustrated tears just from trying to sort the ladies out. All right, ladies, we already have hundreds of noble women in town, as well as hundreds of suitors. Arriving after the event has started probably won't hurt your chances, with so many noblemen gathered. However, it does affect your housing options outside the event. We have housing being built inside the manor compound for daughters of titled nobles. For secondary branch, untitled noble lineages, war widows of untitled nobles and others, we have group housing here in town. Raise your hand if you did not get the notice to bring bedding and travel essentials. Dozens of hands went up, and Dominic sighed. All right, if you need supplies, please move to the side, so we can arrange them for you. If you are the daughter of a baron or greater title, or the widow of one, please step to the other side. Dominic waited a few minutes to see how the numbers evened out. There were close to 30 with no supplies, but Dominic could arrange to have them bunk with commoners who had supplies and would accept coin for housing. There were only 20 directly from a titled family of baron or higher. That was far fewer than expected, but it would help with the housing situation in the manor. But that left well over 400 women in the main group, and that was pushing the limits of a single warehouse, even if they were sharing tents for a modicum of privacy. Then, Dominic noticed more airships inbound from the northwest. Those would almost certainly be ladies from Axbridge. Just exactly what they didn't need right now. Dominic made a quick note requesting that anyone with noble-blooded sons send them to assist with the imbalance here, and passed it to the guard who had come to get him. Have one of the airship captains broadcast this. That Axbridge convoy is probably all women. Chapter 5:15. Getting them wet. Once the runner was gone, Dominic had the airship crew assemble. Ladies, I am trusting your sense of direction on this. Once all your airships are tied down and secured away from the docks, escort these ladies to the sheriff's office. Here is a map. Sheriff Nate will arrange for the ladies to stay among the commoners, who will provide them lodging for a minimal fee. He knows who has space, and who is unsuitable to allow a young lady to stay with. That's what we can do for those who didn't bring supplies. My apologies for not having enough housing, but with over 1,000 new arrivals and Westover already overcrowded, we've been hard-pressed to get supplies. The ladies looked relieved that Dominic at least had a plan that was better than having them share a bed with one of the other debutantes. That was how a lot of these events ended when the guest list was long. Either they would share a bed, or they would cycle their schedules, so one would go to bed as the other got up to get ready for the day. That also gave them opportunities to meet different men who were also splitting their schedule. The ladies who needed rooms left, and Dominic turned to the ladies who were from titled families. Would anyone be horribly offended if I had Dave escort you to the manor? He's quite personable, but not the best with detailed questions. One of the ladies shook her head. I am certain that it will be fine. My father, the Duke Tarley, often hosts such high attendance events, and while Tarley is 30,000 strong, we still struggle to house everyone, she explained. Wonderful. The veiled maids will meet you near the gates. Dave, just 2 will be enough to escort me. The rest of you can take the ladies back. Help them out if there are any deep puddles. Dave nodded eagerly. Got it. No letting them get too wet. No letting them get their feet too wet. By the time we get there, we will all be wet. Dominic was about to ask what the troll meant, but a crack of thunder marked a rapid increase in the rain and sent all the ladies digging for umbrellas in their storage cubes. The weather has been entirely too predictable this week. However, we have the courtyard covered for outdoor events, so you may enjoy the party in comfort. Now, everyone else, please follow me. Quickly, if you will. The rain won't let up anytime soon, so it's best to get you all settled. In their finery, running was not an option, but Dominic led the ladies as quickly as possible to the warehouse, where a member of the infrastructure team was waiting for them, along with a few members of the Merchants Guild. Your Grace, we came to offer the ladies anything that they needed. We got in a shipment of tents and bedding just this morning. If they're short on anything else, the main warehouse is just at the end of the street, only a few hundred meters away, past the gentlemen's apartments. That caught the ladies' attention. Gentlemen's apartments? For to a dorm, somewhat crowded, but we did our best to repurpose the small apartments into housing for the men, so that the titled ladies could all fit in the manor grounds. Dominic explained. The ladies smiled. That meant that they passed right by the men on their way to every event. How deep is the mud? Should we plan to attend with knee boots? One of the ladies asked. Ankle boots are fine. All the roads in town are stone, thanks to the Royal Infrastructure team. The ladies looked relieved, and Dominic saw a few curious gentlemen gathered near the door, eager to help in any way that they were needed. I am hoping that everyone can find a room in this warehouse. There is a second level, so please set tents for privacy with minimal walking space and share space where possible. By the door, there are buckets of nails to anchor tent ropes to the wooden floorboards. That was the cue for the nobleman to swoop in. Ladies, if we can relieve the Duke of the duty, we will gladly help you set up your quarters. We have extensive experience in the subject, as we were stationed along the Dagos border with the regular regiments. A tall blonde bachelor offered. Dominic backed away as the conversation turned to flirting, and the rest of the nearby noblemen came in to help set tents. Merchant, can you help them arrange the space? If they need to expand into the next warehouse, just let the guards know and help them move. Be aware that we do have entirely too many more ladies coming to the region. More than we will be able to house, even with the new buildings going up. The merchant chuckled. Might be wise to get the boys married up as quick as you can and into farmhouses and barony manors. It'll get them out of town and free up space. Dominic nodded and added hand signals to his response. I'm sure that some will find their perfect match soon. We don't want to rush them just for the sake of housing. Marriage is a lifetime commitment, and all. Everyone wants what I have with the Duchess. I need to go inspect the manors and farmhouses further out. There will still be bodies in many of them, and the preservation magic might have left them in questionable states. I can't send them out to houses until I know what is habitable. The merchant nodded and smiled, as if what Dominic had spoken out loud was all of it. Yes, we are all quite envious. If you can't do it yourself, send the adventurers with directions on how to clear the houses and reactivate them. That was actually a fairly decent idea. And the adventurers had surely seen some atrocities in the past. Chapter 516. Might be goats. Dominic left as the conversations turned to suggestive offers to help the ladies get warm and dry, while he searched the sky for the next incoming airships from Axbridge. They were already on the approach, but as they got closer, Dominic realized that they were not Axbridge airships at all. They were built and marked as Skipple Royal Transports, the Skipple Nation's transports for hire. The Merchants Guild used some of them, Dominic remembered. But they didn't cross toward Dago's, as they were a generation behind and cumbersome in flight. Normally, they would struggle in this sort of storm, but the winds were blowing hard out of the north, and they had been making exceptionally good time coming south. Dave, let's go see what is going on. They might be from northeastern Axbridge, or they might be from Skipple near the Dago's border. Given the chaos in Skipple, it might be pretty ladies or a good fight. Could it be goats? Dominic smiled at the troll. It might be goats. The airship circled with a suspicious level of agility, and the two trolls lifted their shields, using the pretense of using them as umbrellas to get themselves ready. Then they realized that they were actually great umbrellas, and began to celebrate. The first airship was on final approach when the door opened, and a mage in black robe stepped out, floating to the ground under an umbrella of magic that was keeping the rain off him. Prince Alex, the second Prince of Signia, waved as Dominic came into sight. I see that you made new friends. Right proper-sized mountain trolls, aren't they? I have brought you men for the event. They're not in great shape. We were on mobile rescue duties after the monster siege ended, evacuating the towns all along the Athirster River in Skipple. It's being hit by the storms out of Dago's, and it's all swampland to begin with. But that's not the important part. I've got over 200 noblemen, officers, and non-commissioned sorts. Do you have anywhere to put them? Dominic laughed. At least someone thought to ask. But yes, we've been throwing up warehouses like mad, hoping to use them later. The boys can set camp in one. It's got a Magitech stove to cook on, and a privy with a single shower, but you'll have to arrange everything else. The prince shrugged. Doesn't bother me. I'll stay at the house. Indeed. Your suite at the manor is available. Unfortunately, your beloved sister has given all the rooms, but your own quarters to other family members and envoys. Close enough for me. As long as the warehouse has plumbing, the men will figure it out. It's better than most of the places they've been sent. They'll be down soon, but I need a nap after trying to keep those relics under control all the way down here. I've been awake for days. Do you want me to send you straight to the house? Or will you stay until your men are settled? I'm too tired to portal. I will stay to watch them and recover a bit. Hopefully, they can get properly landed. Those airships really are terrible. We should have purchased a regiment's worth of trucks instead of requisitioning these. The price was right, though. They just wanted them out of the major storms, and I was certain that the worst would be over by the time we got here. It's still raining, but compared to Kynwyn, this is nothing. We passed over this morning, and it looks like a set of castles in a lake. There are refugees everywhere once you get away from the floodwaters. Dominic's frown turned into a dismissive shrug. Well, nothing that I can do about the weather, and I don't have the people to do a rescue. We're mostly just hoping that Limpsbury doesn't flood. It's not on a major river, so that's a good start. But it is much closer to the border than we are. Prince Alex shook his head. It should be fine. They're getting a lot of rain, but it will just be muddy to the point that they can't go anywhere except by air. They're not going to have to evacuate the city, like so many others. Axbridge is just lucky that they're so lightly populated in the northeast. They're sending all sorts of people inland, but there are only a few more groups of nobles coming this way that we heard on the radio. They turned west to get away from the storms, while we chased the front edge of the typhoon south. The winds will hit you here, but the worst of the storm is already fading as the eye passes over land. The airships were down now, not at the docks but in the parking area, and the soldiers were unloading their own supplies in the rain, looking worn and exhausted. Right, let's get them indoors and set up. The ladies might be frightened off if they see them like this. Or they might be intrigued. It worked for you, didn't it? As I recall, the first time that Princess Alexis saw you, You were covered in goblin blood. And many times after that. However, I don't believe that is the usual method for finding a good wife. Few are so hardy and firm of will as mine. The prince rolled his eyes. It seems both of the twins got the sort of husband that they wanted. Thorvald, son of Duke North in West Kyria, is set to marry Josephine in the spring when the weather is good again. She wanted a spring wedding, for better weather and possibly so that she didn't have to move away from her border posting before the war was over. Regardless, she has been moved to Northia now, and she will be a guest of the West Kyrian crown until the wedding. But it was a good effort. Dominic clasped his hands in front of him. We will pray for Thorvald. May his pranks not lead to his untimely demise before he might consummate his wedding. Chapter 517. Fill the racks. The soldiers were led directly to an empty warehouse and began making plans to set up densely racked cots so that they could maximize space for their unit and still have room to move around, instead of setting group tents as most did, for privacy. They had long since given up on privacy, living on the battlefield. Without that expectation of privacy, they could happily share a much smaller space than any of the other groups of noblemen would. But only a portion of this group were actual nobles. That both helped and hindered the balance. They still needed more noblemen. But they also needed men who were not noble, but who had a future to catch the eyes of the servants and unranked ladies. It might not be their family's first option, but with honors coming, there was still hope that many of them could either end up wealthy or titled by the time that everything with Dagos was sorted out. I will leave you all to get ready for tomorrow's festivities. Or perhaps the late evening events tonight. We have extended meetings well beyond the afternoon tradition. It seemed to me that our guests needed more time to get to really know each other in public. Prince Alex clapped his commander on the shoulder. Get the boys fresh and clean. I will be expecting to see them tomorrow. Let them rest or flirt with the ladies in the city this evening, if they're brave enough to head out in the rain. The commander laughed. It's better that they don't. We don't have spare formal uniforms, and none of them have enough finery to be getting soaked the first day. Dominic, I will accompany you back to the house. The mana exhaustion is getting to me, and I'm not feeling up to a portal right now. Prince Alex insisted. Of course. Dave comes equipped with a properly sized umbrella. The troll nodded eagerly. The trolls had obtained large table umbrellas, large enough for 2 trolls to stand shoulder to shoulder under them. Not as cool as using their shields as umbrellas, but practical for covering important people. Leaving the soldiers to their own devices, Dominic headed straight across the field toward the manor. It was faster than following the streets through town, and the ground was flat and relatively solid, as it was not a worked field. You've done wonderful things with the place since you arrived. I hadn't expected that you would thrive so easily here, but look at how the city is coming. There is industry, the farms are producing well, and even the shops in the city all look like they are busy more often than just during this event. Alex noted as they walked. It's been a string of good luck. We had the guilds request a few specific people for us, but mostly we've just gotten lucky with the people who heard rumors of Westover and decided to give us a try. For example, the Duskblade sect. They're an amazing addition to the city, and they're running an academy for us, where they will be teaching basic magical classes, so that we will have workers for the Magitech device factories. Spoken like a true businessman. You really were born to lead a duchy. Alex began, then paused and dropped his voice to a whisper. There is magic in the area. I think that someone is tracking us. Someone hostile. Dave, call the others. I want at least 30 Daves on the way here. They were close enough that the trolls could see each other with hand gestured, no shouting needed. That was all that it took to scramble the guards and have the first group headed their way as more trolls came to take their places. All around Dominic, portals opened. Then a barrier went up, locking him inside with Prince Alex and 2 trolls. Dave smiled as the rain stopped, and they put away their umbrellas to have their shields and prepare their clubs. Whatever was coming through was not going to be friendly, but mountain trolls didn't have a word for fear in their language. The closest they had was a word that meant hungry and out of soup. A group of undead Dagos soldiers rushed through the portals, surrounding the group, while the trolls ran toward them from the manor. I'm not going to be much help. Alex whispered. When it starts, teleport out. Get clear of the battle. Dave and I will be fine, but defending an exhausted mage won't be easy. Prince Alex didn't look convinced, but he nodded. He had an emergency energy elixir that would give him enough mana to get away without activating any of the royal relics. Then they would find a way through the barrier. All he had to do was get back to his unit. Mortar launchers would take down that barrier in a matter of minutes. Dominic had to be able to hold out that long. The undead encircled their position, and a small group of Dago's nobles in tattered clothes, looking half-starved and soaking wet, followed them. Wouldn't you know it, the Kingslayer and the Butcher alone without any guards, mages, or backup. Today you die for Dagos. Dominic opened his arms in a grand gesture. Gentlemen, welcome to Westover. Lovely weather for a bit of bloodshed, isn't it? Without a word, the undead charged, and Dominic nodded to Prince Alex. The mage downed a potion and vanished, while Dave swung clubs through the horde. Dominic activated Arcane Blast, targeting the nobles. But something was wrong. They looked almost relieved when the spells hit them. They didn't have magical barriers up, they just charged at him, aiming to overwhelm Dominic before he could kill too many of them. It was strange and cultish, or mind-controlled behavior. Like they had a goal that was more important than their lives. It was not how a nobleman should behave, even if their lands had just been hit with a major typhoon. Unless there was nothing left. No resistance, no survivors. Just a few stragglers desperate to take the chance they had found to kill Dominic and Prince Alex. Chapter 5:18. Where there are portals. A magic-enhanced blade bounced off Dominic's area barrier as he blasted his way through the third of the nobles. He had to find the mage, but he didn't sense one among the group. Just nobles and undead. But there were portals. There had to be mages. As Dominic moved to target the nobles, the undead surged, cutting him off from Dave, while magic surged in the barrier. Damn it. He knew what they were after now. This was a suicide run. They hadn't realized that the second prince was no longer in the secured area inside the barrier, so they were doing all that they could to set off the trap before he could recover. That was why there were no mages here. The ones who had passed through the portals were nothing more than bait. They were trapping everyone inside the barrier, keeping them away from the portals. How they knew that Alex was exhausted and unable to fight back was a matter that would need to be investigated. But it seemed much more likely that they were targeting him than Dominic, who hadn't moved from town in weeks. If they had wanted to target him, he had been alone every day, walking to various locations around town. The undead began to turn to dust under the effect of the spell, and Dominic felt power flowing into his body again. This had happened before, and he still didn't have an answer for why. But a solid core of power was forming in the middle of the dome, and it was impervious to the attacks of the trolls. The world started to turn red as Dominic felt the mana overwhelm his body, and then the scent of sweat and fear caught his attention. Barely coherent, he launched himself forward, knocking down one of the surviving nobles as he charged through the portal. Behind him, the explosion's spell detonated, and flames licked over his back before the portal closed. Shit, he escaped. Run. Those were the last words that Dominic heard before his memory went blank. The next thing he knew, he was standing in the basement of a stone structure. Not the dungeon, it was an open stone room, and it was completely covered in blood. So much blood. Dominic wiped his hands on his pants, only to find that they were just as blood-soaked, and he was just smearing the mess. The next task was to try to identify a body so that he could determine where he was. Clearly, he had gone feral for some time, but he didn't recognize this place. None of the bodies looked familiar. Some were mages, some were nobles dressed in Dago's fashion, but all were mutilated beyond recognition. The best that he could do was to pocket all their storage items, so that when he found a mage with the appropriate skill, they could be open to identify the owner. There were a few commendations from the Dago's army, which gave him hope that he hadn't gone wild too close to home, but nothing definitive. From upstairs, he could hear rain and shouting. Dominic moved to the window and found that there was flood water nearly up to the basement's entry, and the walls were nearly underwater. They were downhill of the building, but there had to be 5 meters of floodwaters out there. No wonder there was panic. But that was an excellent opportunity. Dominic popped the window open and crept out into the water, rinsing himself clean before putting on his best mage robes with a hood. With the hood pulled low, he wouldn't be as identifiable, and nobody would question the need for it in this weather. He headed toward the sound of the shouting and found a most glorious sight. A large group of Dago's nobles were trying to load a boat, while a pair of castle guards were brandishing their swords to fight off the staff members desperately trying to board. 2 quick pulses of arcane blast, and the guards fell, bringing whoops of joy from the castle staff, who happily threw the nobles from the large wooden boat and began packing as many people as possible inside, without sinking it. "You, mage, what is your major malfunction?" one of the nobles demanded, while drawing his blade. Dominic didn't speak. He simply cut the nobles down with arcane blast and enjoyed the feeling of his body repairing itself. He had taken extensive damage somewhere, but he hadn't noticed until it started to heal. The servants paused as the nobles died. If the mage was willing to kill an earl and his family, who were they to survive this madman's wrath? "Sir, we saved you a spot. We're not leaving you behind." One of the maids stammered. "Where am I? Is there a radio here that still functions?" Dominic demanded. "Lightson Manor, Lord Magus. The northwestern corner of Dagos. Did something happen to your companions downstairs?" They were supposed to take the nobles away after they finished their spells. But with all this flooding, they tried to flee anyhow. "What is the date?" The servants looked confused. Dagos peasants weren't usually taught how to read, so they told time by the moons, not by exact days. 1 day after the 5th full moon. 3 days since the storm made landfall. The floods have been getting worse and worse. The rain just won't stop. Do you know where we can go for safety? So, less than half a day since he was attacked. That might be a new personal record for recovering from the bloodlust without assistance. Dominic gave them a defeated and mocking laugh. There isn't anywhere on this peninsula from here to Cockingen that is more than 30 meters above sea level. Even if you flee, there isn't anywhere within 300 kilometers that isn't flooded by the storm. The servants looked out over what used to be the town. It was all gone, buried under floodwaters and the storm surge as the trailing edge of the typhoon passed over them yesterday. If that extended along the whole path of the storm, they really had nowhere to go. "Now, is there a working radio? The portals are closed, and I want to go home." "There's a radio upstairs in the attic. The operator is dead, though," the maid explained, with a gesture toward one of the guards. "Well, that's fine. I killed everyone else inside, too. I will figure it out. Now, you can go boating if you like, or you can stay here and move everything to the 2nd floor in hopes that the waters don't reach it." Chapter 519. Safer to stay. It only took a few seconds for everyone to decide that it was likely safer to stay with the insane mage than to try to take a rowboat on a journey of hundreds of kilometers through overland flooding. They didn't know what way the current would push them, but all rivers flowed to the ocean, and that was not where they wanted to be in such a small vessel, especially when it was completely loaded with staff. "Sir, we will begin clearing the house. Is there a particular title that you would prefer that we address you by?" one of the maids asked. "I am the Duke of Westover, so you may address me as such. Or you may simply call me Lord Dominic. Both are fine, given the situation." "Of course, Your Grace." "Wait, Westover? You're the Duke of Westover?" Dominic waved mates, "The Butcher of Westover?" "It's hardly necessary to bring up my war merits in this situation. After all, it will be a minor miracle if the house doesn't flood entirely. How about everyone just sticks with Lord Dominic?" The maid nodded numbly as she tried to take in the fact that the most feared urban legend in existence was standing in front of her. No, he wasn't just standing here if he were to be believed. He had just murdered an entire platoon of mages on top of the nobles she had seen him kill. "Your Grace, if I might be so bold, how did you get here?" "I sensed Dago's nobles using magic to stir trouble, and it came through a portal." "Then, you can leave through one, right?" "I can't use portal magic." The servant stared at him, processing the cognitive disconnect. "I was standing next to a portal that they opened. I didn't do it myself." "So, you just came through a portal to do what?" "Kill every Dago's aligned mage and noble you found." Dominic nodded happily and patted the girl on the shoulder. "I knew that you were a quick learner. Now, I would stay out of the basement. It's a bit messy. Let the floodwaters take care of it. Just take the valuables and foodstuffs from the storage areas and get them all onto the top floor. Not the attic, in case the storm causes the roof to leak, but on the top floor of the manor. All the servants rushed to get things moved, but one older woman stopped. You didn't do anything in the pantry, did you? Dominic shrugged. I don't recall being in there at all. It should be safe to go to that part of the basement and perhaps the dungeon. But the area by that window, don't go in there. It rather looks like someone painted the area red. The woman looked a bit sick. Understood, Your Grace. I will send someone to check the upstairs bedrooms as well. A scream from the second-floor balcony told Dominic that their warning would come too late. Were you in there? The older woman asked. Dominic shrugged. Probably. It smells like blood, so it might have been me. I tend to forget the small details. You're a dragon, aren't you? Like the legends say. Dominic lifted his hood so she could see his horns. Dragon enough. And I have been known to go a bit feral in combat. The woman nodded. I suspected when I saw the eyes, but that's pretty damning. Dominic smiled, and the woman flinched. Oh, right. The teeth. I should likely be the one to check the bedrooms. Just in case. You all knew those people, and frankly, I am the only one here who won't care if there are bodies everywhere. She nodded. Just, please don't let the others see the children if they're. Got it. I'll go in now. Dominic walked to the edge of the balcony and jumped, relying on the buffs from the strength spell gem to get him up. At level 15, as a spellbook was now, he had no issues grabbing the second-floor balcony railing and tossing himself onto the ledge. Inside the room was one terrified maid and about 2/3 of a man's body. Yeah, he had been here. Kindly go back downstairs for a moment. I will clear the bedrooms. Dominic informed her quietly, but the woman shook her head. No, I need to see. There was only one more room occupied in the house. Everyone else left already. Dominic followed her to the 3rd floor, stopping to check inside the other bedrooms, which were all open and blessedly empty. The sound of crying alerted him to the situation faster than his eyes did, and Dominic stepped in front of the maid as they approached a room at the end of the hallway. The door was open, like all the others, and Dominic wondered when he had time to come up here, and how he had ended up back in the basement. Had he thought that there might still be a portal open for him to go home through? That seemed likely. There were bloody footprints on the floor that matched his boots. Dominic found himself whistling a nursery rhyme as he walked toward the sound of a crying baby, and the maid behind him froze in terror. But the child was crying, so it was not dead. Dominic stepped inside and found the bedroom of what should be 3 infants, as the room was segmented blue on each side with pink in the middle with 3 cribs. He could see that he entered by the footprints, but nothing was damaged. So, he was shocked to see that there was a bloody handprint on each of the children, blood on their blankets, but 2 of the 3 were sleeping soundly, while 1 was awake and crying. What's wrong, little one? I have a nanny here. I'm sure that she will be happy to help you if you need a diaper change. You don't smell like it. Perhaps you're hungry? Yes. It must be hungry. Dominic used the same soft cooing tone that everyone did with babies, and the crying turned to a happy burble as the little one reached for him. The maid rushed past him and picked up the little one, checking her for injuries and carefully unwrapping her when she saw blood on the blankets. I don't think that they were in this room to start with. I put them here. See, handprints on the blankets. I will go check the other rooms. Chapter 5:20. Look upstairs. The obvious place to start was the very next room, and that was where Dominic found the most likely location where the children had been. It was a small room full of children's toys, and one manor guard that had a large hole in his chest, roughly the shape of an extended hand. A bit messy, but quick. Really, it was a shock that the children hadn't panicked at that time and alerted the staff, who were all outside trying to convince the nobles either not to run away or to take them when they did. The children had been completely forgotten. Dominic raised area barrier as he felt a portal open near him, but the first thing through was a small waving hand. Lord Dominic, there you are. We've been looking all over for you, and it was like you vanished off the map. Amy greeted him. How did you find me anyhow? I was going to send a radio message. By the disturbance in the force. Dago's forces are reporting that the rain suddenly dropped to a drizzle within 50 kilometers of the spot, so we've been opening portals to every manor in the area. They're all empty, by the way. Why does this one smell like blood? It took me a minute to empty it. The mage laughed and stepped through, then let the portal close. Children, servants. Did you even leave the guards? Never mind. Sweet gods above. Did you punch your hand through his chest? That is definitely a handhole. There are children in the next room. No need to scare them. Amy rolled her eyes. They're like 6 months old. They don't understand me. I meant the maid. How much of a mess is the place? Dead nobles down by the water, a whole bunch of mages in the basement, and a few more bodies scattered around the house. I don't think that they heard anything outside because of the storm. Amy held out her hand. Did you at least loot them so we can see who launched the attack on Prince Alex? They would have leveled half the city with that blast if the sect hadn't reacted in time, and with him suffering from mana exhaustion, Prince Alex would have been one of the casualties, even in the warehouse. It was that large? Large enough that our first thought when we couldn't find you was that there was no body left to find. Amy confirmed. In that case, I need a solid 24 hours before we return. But send a message that I'm alive and well right away. Time for Princess Alexis to calm down? And time for me to come up with a suitable apology for making her think I was vaporized. Dominic agreed. Amy laughed at the horrified look on the maid's face. Their conversation was entirely too casual for the situation, as if slaughtering a house full of mages and nobles was an everyday occurrence, and the greatest fear should be that he forgot to tell his wife he was leaving. Even if he had married someone truly cruel and evil, wasn't he still the more terrifying one in the relationship? If you and your wife have a rocky relationship, perhaps a gift from among the Duke's valuables? It might soften her heart a little. She offered quietly. None of the recognizable items could be pawned by a commoner anyhow. The noble shopkeepers would kill them for looting if they tried. So, it was better that they were taken away to Signia, where the temptation would be gone. Oh, that's not the problem. You see, the mages in the basement tried to blow me up with a spell, and I vanished through a portal, so my wife thought that I was dead until about 2 minutes ago. She is not going to be happy with me for not letting her know I was alive. Amy gave him an unimpressed look. You understand perfectly well what the problem is, yet you still didn't send the message. Dominic smiled to show his fangs, and the mage nodded. He had been lost in bloodlust and unable to send the message. That was a perfectly reasonable answer for why he didn't. But it also wouldn't mollify Alexis, who was currently making plans to invade Dago's to find him. The maid cleared her throat softly to get their attention without waking the children. Lord Dominic, miss. Forgive me, but what happens now? Dominic shrugged. I wasn't joking about waiting to go back. Watch the children, and tell me if there are other children or staff hiding in the house, so nobody gets hurt. I will go see how everyone is doing with the transfer of supplies to the upper floors, and then we will figure out what is going on with the floodwater. The storm is mostly past, so in theory it should start going down soon. However, the weather in Dago's is insane lately, and there is no guarantee that the weather will hold. If necessary, I may be able to relocate the staff here. Amy looked concerned. What condition would these staff be in if Dominic was allowed to relocate them? He had been remarkably casual about allowing Dago's born women into Wistover, but going by the amount of blood on the floor, that was not a certain thing. I am going to go inspect the basement and make sure that nothing was forgotten. Amy whispered. I think that I got it all, but if you can clean up with a spell or something, everyone would thank you for it. The little mage laughed. I don't have spells for domestic work, sorry. However, I might be able to hose down the place, as I do have one to create a jet of water. Dominic shrugged. The flood water will likely take care of that for us. But removing the bodies would be a good start. Amy sighed. You really are taking on the role of the peak noble, aren't you? Just leaving your trash everywhere for someone else to pick up. No offense to the lady present. None taken. It's probably not a secret that we're not actually going to miss them.